I had an encounter with the Mothman. I wasn't convinced at the time, but here's the story. When I was around 16, I lived in rural West Virginia, out a country road. It was an old farmhouse. And at the top of the house, in the second story, it was split, 2 bedrooms on either side of the hallway. And that night, the windows were open, and we had just laid down for bed. And when I say just laid down, it wasn't I was dozing off. I had, just laid down. And then a woman screamed so loud that it resonated in my room. It was one of the loudest screams I'd ever heard in my life. My mom bust open the door, and she was like, "Did you hear that?" And of course, I jumped up and looked out the window to obviously see the woman on the ground screaming. And there was nobody. And then it was quiet. It was dead quiet. I grabbed my gun and I ran outside, and still nothing. As I compared the story with my mom, back and forth, we realized that it sounded the same. The way that she described how loud it was essentially the way I had described it. It was just so loud and resonating, and that just didn't make sense, because if somebody was on one side of the house screaming their head off, surely, yeah, you would hear it on the other side, but it wouldn't be to the same degree. But yet, turns out, that's how she described it also. My first thought was, some hillbilly's playing a trick. But there was just nobody around. In fact, now that I think back, it was too quiet. And I couldn't help but think in that moment back to the book that I had read, The Mothman Prophecies. Countless witnesses recounted their stories, and I recalled one where they said that this thing sounded like a woman screaming. And at that time, I didn't really want to believe in these supernatural things. As a kid, I did, but getting older, I was just pushing it out of my head, but yet there it was. Gave me chills for a moment, but I just ignored it and went about my life. And in fact, the thing that stood out in my head the most was that all ended in the 60s, right? When the bridge fell. But that's not the case. It seems since that last sighting and that tragedy in West Virginia, there has been other sightings of the Mothman. But I didn't know that until I was much older. If I had, I might have actually considered that was a true encounter. Because if that thing were flying overhead and screamed its little head off, that would be the only thing that would make it equally loud for both of us, while also being not a soul in sight.